Right, g'day guys. So today what I'm going to be doing is running through how to make or fabricate a front lip for your car. The reason I really want to make one for this car is I've got these side skirts that I want to put on it, but the side skirts hang way lower than the front of the car, and the factory lip sort of gets higher as it goes towards the front, and I sort of destroyed half the factory lip the other day anyway. So I figured I'll run through how to fabricate how to fabricate an aluminium front lip for any car. Now I'm going to use these aluminium sheets just because I've got a bunch of them. They're 1/2 mil thick, but you can buy 1/2 mil thick aluminium sheet from any sort of steel, aluminium, metal supply place pretty cheaply. So the biggest difference between what I'm going to do and what you normally see for sort of DIY front lips is I'm going to use this aluminium because it comes in sheets. Anything that comes in a roll is useless. So these like garden edge lips that people make, because it comes in a roll, the lip has to hang vertically all the way around and it just looks stupid. Like if I just riveted this on vertically like that, the lip has no shape, it just sticks straight down. Whereas because the aluminium that I'm using, or anything you buy in a sheet, is a sheet and not a roll, you can cut the shape that you want to make it so the lip has like a flare at the side and flares forwards at the front to actually put some design into it rather than just having this like wall of rubber garden edge stuck to the front of your car. So the first thing we need to do is going to get the sheet of aluminium, and wrapping it around that gives us our crappy vertical garden edge lip. What we want is this edge here to flare out like this. If we wrap it when it's flared out, obviously there's a huge gap here. So we need to put it on, get the angle that we want, wrap it around and lift it up until that corner meets there, which seems a bit like it looks weird now. But what we're going to do is we're going to imagine this line of the bumper here sticking out straight. So once this is wrapped around at the angle we want, we need to, this is really hard to do, I need 3 hands to do this nicely. We need to imagine the curve like that goes along underneath it. The idea is when it's wrapped around, that line should be parallel all the way along. So all we'll do is draw the line roughly and then cut it out with a pair of tin snips. Okay, so now that I've cut that shape out, we can put it back on, and we can see now that the lip actually flares out and it sort of lines up with the bumper. So I can see I need to cut this corner off straight. So that corner's straight. I can see I need to cut a bit more off this edge just here, and I can see I need to cut this edge here off straight. So all I need to do is keep holding this up and then working out the curve and getting it nice and matched to the bottom of the bumper. You can see already now our lip wraps around the bumper and has the flared out angle that we want. I've cut a few more bits and pieces off it, and you can see it pretty much matches up perfectly now. It doesn't have to be spot on because we're actually going to cut little tabs and fold it over. Here's one I prepared earlier. You can see the top of it gets cut and folded so it fits underneath the bumper. So as long as you get it pretty close, then we should be right. Now what we're going to do now is mark the size we want the lip. This is a little tool that I've made that I can adjust the length of and then scribe a line along the edge. You could just use a ruler to measure in and put little dots and then connect all the dots together, or you could use a compass to set the width and drag along the edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the first line about 15 mil, and that's the line we're going to use to bend the tabs. So I don't know if you can see that on the video, but there's a 15 mil scribed line there. Next one I'm going to do is how big we actually want the lip itself. So I think I want, remember we've got to add the 15 mil onto it. So that size, maybe a bit bigger. And then after we do that, we're going to do another line with 5 mil extra, which we're going to use to roll a curve on it to give the lip a nicer shape rather than just having a sharp edge. So I'll just cut along the line I drew. Tin snips are worth buying like expensive ones because the difference between an expensive pair of tin snips and a cheap pair is big. You'll also notice that they're mirror images of each other, so that's why they're always different. That's why they're always these 2 different coloured handles, because one pair cuts one way and one pair cuts curves the other, so you need to buy both. I can just remember which pair is supposed to cut which direction. So I'm just going to cut along the bottom line. Okay, so the green pair cuts right-hand circles and the red pair cuts left-hand circles. The other thing is if you don't have tin snips, this aluminium is thin enough that you can cut it with scissors, but you'll have a pretty sore hand by the end of it. And there you go, now we've got our piece. You can see now why we don't use rolls like garden edging, because you can't make a roll this curved shape. This is the shape that once it's on the car ends up with the angle that we want. So what we're going to do now is just cut little slots in the top down to that 15mm line that we're going to use to bend to make the mounting tabs. The part where it's straight you can make fairly big tabs. When you get to the curve you need to make smaller ones so they can fold around themselves. Okay, so once we do that we'll bend all the tabs down at 90 degrees. So I've finished cutting the tabs, and there's an important step that I almost forgot. So we'll put an F on here so we know that this is the front, because this is the side that goes that way. All we need to do is get our sheet again, flip this over, put it back on, and then mark out the curve of it, because we need to make the other corner of the lip. It would have been easier before I cut the slots in it, but I forgot. There you go. So now that we've got the other mirror image side of it marked out, we can fold all these tabs down. There you go, so once our tabs are folded down, depending on how much of a curve you're trying to go around, you might want to cut little triangles out of the middle of the tabs so they don't like get stuck against each other. But I think for my car, they should be right to just fold over the top of each other. Now is the part where we can come over to the car and fit up the lip to see how we like it. So my car has some little screws holding on this part of the front, this original front lip, so I have to cut out some tabs to fit around it. But at this point we get it all mounted up and we decide whether we like the angle that we've ended up with, and if we don't, we start again, and if we're happy with it then we can continue on. Okay, so our lip's mounted up now. We can see it's got a forward facing angle on it rather than just being vertical, and we can see it also flares out to the side this way rather than just going straight up and down. We've got this little line marked at the bottom here, so remember the lip's going to end up 5mm shorter by the end of it, so I think that should match up with the side skirts I'm trying to get the height to sit well with. Now we can get our other side that we marked and do it all again. The two corner pieces temporarily mounted in place. Now I've got to measure the gap from this one to this one, and then make a straight piece that's that 15cm tab, size of the lip, and 5mm bottom. Just make a straight section to fit across the middle. Because of the size of aluminium sheets I've got, I'll probably have to make it into two separate pieces. I don't think I have to show you how to make that because it's just a straight strip. Once we've got that straight piece cut out, I have to cut a little notch here to avoid these bolts. We can double check that it fits and matches up. Now I've marked the middle of the bumper here, and I've got about 10mm overhang, and then I'll do the same on the other side so we can put some rivets in, and obviously 10mm overhang here so we can put some rivets on that side as well. Got our 4 pieces of our lip cut out. The next step we have to do is probably the hardest step and one of the most important steps. At the moment it looks like an aluminium lip that we cut out in our garage, which we did, but we don't want it to look like that. So this 5mm line, we're going to roll it to give it a nice curved edge rather than having this sharp looking edge. So what I've got is a panel beating dolly held in my vise. You don't have to use a panel beating dolly, but whatever you use, you want to grind the corner off it so it's got a round corner, and you want to make sure it's nice and smooth. I'm also using a panel beating hammer, which once again, it doesn't have to be panel beating specific hammer, but whatever you use, like sand the face of it to make sure it's a nice flat edge. All we're going to do is get our lip and put it up on the edge of the dolly, and then bend that edge where we've marked it around the edge of the dolly. Now you want to take your time doing this, because once you sort of bend it, it's really hard to get it to go flat again without making it look all ripply. So just take your time slowly working it up to the line that we've marked. You can see I'm only barely touching it, and this is a really light hammer as well, so if you're using a normal hammer, it's just like pretty much the weight of the hammer is enough to hit it. You don't even need to swing it. You can see we're starting to get a nice rolled edge on our lip now. Yeah. What you don't want to do is hang it over the 5mm and try and do the whole thing at once. You want to start with only rolling 2mm over and then slide the aluminium over as you sort of pull it down around the edge of the dolly. Now once the edge of our lip's all folded, we can fit it back to the car to make sure we still have the correct curve on it. You can see now it's a little bit wobbly because I'm no expert metal worker, but it'll get better with practice. But you can see now we don't have that crappy sharp edge on the lip anymore. It's got a nice rounded profile now and looks a lot more professional. There's our next piece done. Depending on how accurate you were with your folding, you might have to adjust the two corners to get them to match up a bit better, but I'm fairly happy with that, so on to the next piece. Okay, so I've finished rolling the last piece. This middle bit here matches up all right, but the side on this one, it doesn't quite match up. I have to roll the edge of this piece a bit more, so we'll adjust that and refit it. So all my rolled pieces fit now. I'm going to put some rivets to hold the sections of the lip together. Now some people for some reason decide that rivets mean you don't actually have to measure anything because they're invisible, but rivets are not invisible. Because you've gone all the effort of rolling the edge, might as well bother to mark the rivets out with even spacing. There you go, well, one section done. A bit annoyed that I folded it a little bit when I was putting the drill through, but it'll be right. Next sections. There we go, we're all riveted up now, so we'll pull it off and give it a coat of paint and then permanently attach it. Now this aluminium, because it's so shiny and smooth, it's really hard to get paint to stick to, so I'm going to go over it with a Scotch-Brite back of a new sponge, rough it up a bit to give the paint something to stick to. All I'm going to do is use a couple of Tek screws through the fold over tabs into the bottom of the bumper to hold the lip on, and then we're done.